Alright, ladies and gents, it's Zem, and I'm doing a review on the Mig-3. And this is one of my favorite aircraft at Tier 5. You don't see a lot of them running around. I mean, it's one of those still kind of I don't know if people actually go down the line or really don't play the. I mean, you do see them in game once in a while, but like you said, between the BFs, the Spitfires and the Zeros, this is one of those planes that's kind of left out. Even the Yak 1 probably gets more, play time than this aircraft does. This used to be a really fun aircraft in the pre 2.0 because of its, altitude performance and whatnot. History of this aircraft, production was started in 1940. It was going to be a replacement for the MiG-1 to overcome all of the problems that the MiG-1 had. This was designed as a high-altitude interceptor. Now, you read the history about it, and there was a lot of bad things said about it and all that stuff. The problem is it wasn't so much it was a bad aircraft; it was just never employed at what it was designed for. This thing was designed to be at over 20,000 feet, to be I shouldn't say untouchable, but yeah, it was better than the BF 109 at 20,000 plus feet. In fact, the third leading ace for the Russian Air Force, he was actually the third leading ace for the Allied in general. He actually loved this aircraft. He said above 4,000 meters, it was a perfect aircraft. It did have a lot of teething problems, specifically with some of its pumps, structural issues and that stuff, and they never really got worked out because it started production in 1940 and it ended production in 1941. This was decided to stop production on this and start production on the IL-2. So yeah, there was a couple, a little over 1,500 aircraft produced. But it was one of those aircraft, once again, it wasn't so much it was a bad design as it wasn't really needed. I mean, the Eastern Front didn't have a lot of high altitude fighting. Most of it was low altitude. And at low altitude, this thing was not as fast as the BF-109, and it certainly couldn't outturn it. So yeah, it kind of, one of those wishy-washy aircraft. It was designed, like I said, designed as a high altitude, was never able to be used in its original purpose. So it was used, I believe, in 1941, the spring of 1941. It was issued to the frontline Air Force, and it, once again, you really can't, you read the history of these planes and you're like, oh, people are like, oh, the Mig-3s were a terrible aircraft. They weren't really a terrible aircraft because they were never employed in the way they were designed. So this aircraft suffered in World War II because it was always below 4,000 meters in a fight with the BF-109s and that kind of thing. So as an actual, design, this aircraft was, not a bad aircraft. It was actually pretty nice for the initial design of it as a high altitude interceptor. Some of the teething problems never got worked out because it was in such a short production. I mean, we're talking less than a year. This thing was out of production. They also decided that after, as the initial run of the production, it was taken out of the fighter, using it as a fighter, and was used as the ground attack, which even made it worse because it didn't do that either very well. So I mean, I said this is one of those aircraft that got a reputation for not being a very good aircraft, but not because it wasn't. It was just simply because it was not used what it was designed for. So with that said, it's an interesting aircraft, and one of the reasons I like it so much is in this kind of a vain thing is as it looks. I mean, this thing looks like something, a race plane from the 30s. It's got that big honking engine in the front. It's Russian, right? Big engines. So I mean, it's to me, it's just a pretty plane, and I like his play style. If you're not familiar with this is a high altitude energy fighter. You stay at altitude, use your speed, use your altitude advantage over other aircraft. And I'm just going to put a little comparison here with one of the planes here in game. Really, honestly, if you're going to compare this to anything else in game, it is essentially a Bf-109. This is a Russian Bf-109. The Bf-109 has a slight advantage over it in altitude performance, but pretty much everything else, otherwise, of course, Bf-109 has 20 millimeter cannons, and it does have a little bit over, at least in the gun armament. In the gun armament, yeah, it's superior. But for the actual flight characteristics, it's very close. Maneuverability, airspeed, and a slight advantage over it in altitude performance. So that's kind of the closest thing I can compare it to. So if you like the Bf-109, you're probably going to be all right in the Mig-3, that kind of play style. It's head and shoulders above the P-40 other than in airspeed. At least in my opinion, these two get in a fight most of the time at altitude. I'm going to win this just because I also have a better maneuverability than the P-40, and I also have a better altitude performance than a P-40. He's slightly faster, but to me those two really cancel out the P-40 in a dogfight. These two, however, getting into a fight makes it very close. Yeah, it's just going to be so who gets the drop on each other, in my opinion. Yak 1's not even obviously maneuverability wise so much better, but everything else about the MiG, once you stay at altitude, you can pick off Yak 1's left and right. They don't really have much of a chance. If you get down into a low and dirty turn fight, yeah, you're going to lose. But other than that, you're not really going to have much problems with the Yak 1's. Even with the Spitfire, I mean, look at the altitude performance compared to the Mig-3. Airspeed, yeah. Energy fighter, pure energy fighter. Don't get in fights with these kind of aircraft, Spitfire 1s. Don't get in fights with A6M2s. Don't get in fights with Ki-43-2s. Any of this with maneuverability wise, you just can't do it. But airspeed, altitude performance, you will dominate these all the time because you're going to get to pick what you're going to do. I mean, this is an ambush aircraft. Pick on your heavy fighters, pick on your bombers, and then look for targets of opportunity. So what do we have in game? Well, we have 150 cal in the nose, two 7.62s in the nose, and then we have two outboard 50 cals on the wings, which is kind of interesting because I was reading about this. They actually there was a version of this with the 3 machine guns in the cowling, but then it actually had two 20 millimeters on the gondolas, which would have been pretty sweet in this aircraft to have those. Unfortunately, we didn't get that version of it, so I guess I can't dream. It would be so sweet. The firepower on this thing would be ridiculous, and it really would be a real nice zoom and boom kind of aircraft. I run reflector sights, I run engine tuning, and I run lightweight airframe on this aircraft. And the reason I'm running lightweight airframe, and of course aerodynamics expert, it's just to give me a little bit more edge when I do run into Bf-109s. Just a slight bit of edge. I mean, it gives me just a little bit over the Bf-109 in turning. Obviously with the altitude performance, we're pretty closely matched, but if I'm going to get into a fight with him at altitude, I can out-turn him. Other than that, there isn't much that I really can't deal with. As long as I maintain my altitude and maintain my speed, I'm going to be able to deal with the A6Ms, the Spitfires, and whatnot. And you'll watch in the videos what I'm talking about. I do run into those quite often and do a pretty nice thing. So yeah, this is probably, like I said, one of my favorite Tier 5s. It's just, like I said, it just looks right as a fighter. I mean, it has that, maybe it's just because I like big engines. I don't know. So I got two games for you guys, and I hope you guys enjoy them. All right, guys, back with the Mig-3 gameplay. I'm going to actually have to turn the volume down a little bit on this. You might not hear it very well. I had some people in here in chat when I was playing, and I didn't realize I'd picked up all of their voice content, so unfortunately I'm going to lose a little bit of the sound here. You probably, like I said, I turned the way down, so you probably won't hear it. Energy fighters. Here you see me here. I'm going to boost up here. This thing does well. Performance-wise, you get up around 2,000 meters. Yeah, that's a pretty plane. I don't know why. I've always liked the looks of this aircraft, And I know I'm vain. I'm vain like that. So I pulled around here on my first victim, which is another boomerang. Um, Back up again. These guys are at 1,000 meters, which is a little bit kind of high for a boomerang. They're probably already in their yellow. This is not something they do well at this altitude. So pull back around. Got another boomerang coming in. Yeah, buddy. This guy right here, he's kind of lost. He's lost his energy. Kind of stalling out here. Pick up another kill on him, and I got one on my tail. Yeah, I'm getting wrecked until I can get back around on him. So pull up, keep the vertical a little bit, and pull back around on him. And on these machine guns, people are like, well, there's just 350s and two 7.62s. Yeah, but they throw a ton of lead. If you can keep on target long enough, you're gonna wear through high HP targets pretty easily. And you're gonna see me here what I'm talking about here. I'm gonna run into a couple bombers here during this game and give it a once over here. So I'm back to middle here. I got a JU-88 at altitude. I'm gonna try to get up there. And I wasn't kidding when I was talking about it in the garage. I mean, this is essentially a BF-109. It's suffered just a little bit less altitude performance, but not much. So it does have no problem to get easily up over here to the 2,000 meter mark and deal with these targets here. So I got a P-38F up here with me. I got a Tomahawk, and I got my bomber here. Those 350s, those 7.62s, they don't heat up quick, and they let you just put a ton of lead out there. So I got me a Tomahawk. I don't fear most aircraft at this altitude. There isn't really a whole lot here that can do that. So I got the BF-110. I pull up out of the way. Of course, I get rammed by the bots. Because bots. Love that shit. So, in some of the games you'll see here, right now the center is being taken over by the red players. So I'm not going to feed that. I'm going to stop playing the center with that many red aircraft. And this is kind of why people get pissed about camping the center. If you have the numerical advantage, of course you're going to camp center. You're just going to feed off the bots and the players that continue to go center. What I'm going to be doing here is I'm just going to start capping objectives outside of the center. It's unfortunate that the center one is the mining facility, which is worth two. So right now they have, essentially, 4 against 2 objectives. But until that red breaks up in there, I'm not going to be able to do anything about it. So use that altitude performance. This is a great heavy hunter. You're pretty close to as fast as they are, and you're not too far off on their altitude performance. And it has the machine guns, of course, to chew through these high HP targets. So drop both those heavy fighters, and now I have the Tomahawk. How the fuck did he get up that high? I have no idea. But that's because he's a bot. He probably had unlimited boost all the way to the top. So P-38F, he's trying to make me his whipping boy. I'm not going to have any of that. Turn around, start working on him. Get quite a few rounds into him. I get most of his health. And you'll notice, like I said, no problem going up to 2,300 meters before I start dropping off on the speedwise. But 2,300 meters, it's not bad. This is bomber height and heavy fighter. So I pull back around. This Tomahawk still wants my shit. These bots of lately is, with the headhunting. Yeah, I get it. I mean, they've turned the bots up, made them better, which I don't have a problem with. So try to pick off the Tomahawk. Unfortunately, the P-38's coming in. We can maneuver with you, buddy. I'm gonna kill him first because he's being annoying. Finish him off, flip the objective, and now I have the Tomahawk here left. I got 9 hit points. Not so good. Pull back around on him. Yeah, there's not much he can do. I can outmaneuver him at this altitude, no problem. So I said why I pick up some of the lightweight airframe and that kind of stuff is just to give me that little extra advantage at this height when I'm dealing with other high altitude fighters. So I'm sticking right on the 22,160 meters. I have a F4F down below. He's playing the ground roll attack. And of course I have an A6M2 that just showed up. Both human players. If I let them go, they're going to take this objective back, and I can't have that right now. Currently we're tied, and I cannot afford to lose any more objectives. So I'm going to drop down here on the A6M2. You know, and I talked about earlier, these are ambush fighters. I'm able to work through his HP really quick once I get on targets. I have no problem turning with an F4F, but that A6M2 is going to eat me in a low altitude fight. So you saw me drop down there, picked my targets that were flying essentially away from me, and worked them over the A6M2. He was my first target of choice, right? I can't get into a turn fight with him, or I'm going to lose. Ambush. We talked about in other videos. It's like just like a cake. Start at the top, take care of your high altitude threats first, which I did with the Tomahawk and the P-38. Once I finish those off, now I drop down and start dealing with this other stuff here. Picked up them other two fighters, and now I got a Ju-87G. Picked up him, and now my cap is secure. My objective is secure, and this is literally going to be, a nail biter. We are currently sitting pretty much even right now. Objectives, we're not gaining on them. So, unless we can take the mining facility here within the next minute and 40 seconds, we're going to lose this game. So, start gaining altitude. I need to get up as high as I can. I'm going to ignore the bomber for now. That center objective is exactly what I need. Got a lag 3 up here. And a few other things. We got a heavy fighter, F4F. So there's lots of planes at a fairly high altitude. Oh yeah, another heavy fighter, so this is going to be interesting. F4F pulls around for me. Thank you, buddy. We're just going to pummel him till he dies. Now he's dead. And we're able to flip back the objective and hopefully hold on long enough to win. Pull around on the P-40. Or the Tomahawk, I'm sorry, and we're just going to finish him off. Right now we're just clearing out red targets and hopefully holding on to this objective as long as possible. Squall line is just up, so now it's going to be, like I said, a matter of finishing off red targets so that they don't come back and giving us a chance to finish off this game. Puts me up at a grade 2 fighter, so now I got heavies above me. BF-110s, P-38s, both of them are flying up and away from me. I got to keep an eye on them just to make sure they're not going to drop on me. So the P-38F, he's coming back across here. Thank you, buddy. Give me your wings. Start working him. Here I'm actually in the vertical. I'm going straight up, boost a little bit up, and I do stall out right as I finish off the P-38F. Altitude with these aircraft. If you can keep this thing above 1,500 meters, you're going to dominate a lot of these aircraft. Obviously the lags, the A6Ms, that kind of stuff. We got an F4F coming up here. We're going to finish him off slowly but surely. Round he goes. Nail him. I got an A6M2 behind me. And he makes a pass at me. At this altitude, he's really at a disadvantage. Doesn't matter with his maneuverability. I still would have killed him and been right on his tail. So yeah, nice 13,000 combat point score for my first game in this Mig-3 in a while. It's been probably a couple months, I think. Maybe, probably right after 2.0 came out. I think is the last time I really played it. So yeah, keep it up above 1,500 meters, and just, you get to decide the fight, especially with those maneuverable aircraft. So, hope you guys enjoyed the first replay, and I got another one coming up for you. Hey guys, back with the second game, and I'm sorry once again, I so forget that when I'm doing this, I gotta make sure I'm muted. And unfortunately, I was in Discord, and there's a bunch of randy fellas in there talking smack, so I had way too much talk over. So I got to mute some of this. You're just going to hear my lovely voice. Maybe I'll sing for you. I don't know. It's possible. I have been known to break into song. as I'm playing this game. So, but we'll come back to that a little bit later. So, um, yeah, you're going to see this too, and this is also somewhat of a map tactics thing too. Uh, we're going to climb up here. We're going to keep our altitude. I got a bullfighters up here, and these are my first targets, of course. I'm going to get up to my about 1,300, 1,500 meters or whatever, and I'm going to start working on these heavy fighters, especially when I have a large number of planes coming over here. It's easy to pick them off. They're obviously usually interested in bombers, so it gives me a chance to work these bullfighters over. One thing to remember on this aircraft, don't do like Zem does. Make sure you put the pneumatic restarter on this thing, because with that massive engine, it gets shot to shit on a regular basis, and you do this a lot if you don't have it on. For some reason, I didn't have it on, and I'm not sure why, but yeah, you definitely want to have that pneumatic restarter on there. I do believe after this game, I did change it back to what it was originally like. Yeah, so we pick off the garrison right off the bat, and it's not looking good in center. There's we got a bullfighter up here, a couple, a fair amount of red. This is not an easy thing to get in here, so I'm going to try to get up to altitude here, wait for my friendlies to get in here with me. We're going to pick up the P-40 first. He's after the bullfighter. I'm going to boost over here and try to pick him up before he gets to diving on me and away from me. I'm not going to follow him down because I don't want to lose my altitude advantage. So I'll pick up the Yak-1. He's diving straight at me, and we ram. He flips up and over, so we're sitting. He's got a little bit more health on me. Yeah, sets me on fire, and I get finished off. It's all right. It's all right. It happens. So this is what we're talking about earlier. You know, we always talk about center objectives being important, especially if you hold them. There's a fair amount of humans in here. Surprise, surprise. What you're going to see me here do is, of course, break this center objective crap, camping, whatever you want to call it. Don't get me wrong, I do it all the time, especially if I see a lot of bots making their way to center. I mean, this is where you get the huge combat scores. Of course, is sitting there on the center objective and working it over here. But if I lose the center objective, it's not easy to get it back. So what you're going to see me do here is I'm going to start picking off targets of opportunity. Pick off the bomber. I want my objective to be safe and not taken. So you're going to see me drop down here to altitude. I'm going to use my speed, of course. I'm going to pick up this I-17, put a couple rounds into him. I don't turn with them. I use the fact that I just hit over 500 kilometers an hour, and you're going to see me just speed away from them. Most bots, most humans, they'll either try to usually break off. They're not going to try to follow me that far. So I got one guy following me here, 440 kilometers an hour. Get a nice separation between me and Clayton, and now we're going to go head to head. Now, which I really don't have a problem with because I can outturn a P-40 either at altitude or at ground height. Pull around here on Clayton, and I start working on the P-40. Finish him off, flip over. I got a Hurricane left down here. He's playing a GA role, but I don't want to lose this objective. We are sitting at 3-2 right now. I'm not, of course, not feeding the center objective. I'm just defending right now. I'm waiting for a chance until the center looks relatively clean of eventually the red's going to figure out they can't just camp the center, and that's when you're going to want to move in. Instead, I'm going to make sure I keep these objectives running right now. I'm going to drop down here on this LBSH and try to knock him out before he's working over this objective. And I don't have a problem. Like I said, if I don't have enemy fighters around, I don't have a problem dropping altitude with this aircraft. It does have a decent climb rate. I mean, it's obviously not a BF-109 climb rate, but it's good enough. So pull down in on here. Let's finish this guy off here before I start going back to center. They're still camping center pretty hard, which is, like I said, fine with me. Don't feed the buffet, the all-you-can-eat buffet, by playing center too much. Now they're just starting. You'll see here where they're starting to break up. They're realizing that hanging out in the center is not going to do you any good. So now they're going to be leaving that, and they're going to be running over here to our blue objective. So I'm going to start working my way over here. Try to get back up to my altitude of at least 1,500 meters. Slowly but surely. Boost, boost, boost. Off the boost, on the boost, off the boost. And I'm one of those guys that are always on the boost. It's a bad habit, I know. Trying to get back up to altitude. I got a Spitfire 1A here and one other fighter. I need altitude to really be able to deal with these kind of planes. So get back up here. I got Clayton down here at the P-40. Zivor in the Spitfire 1A. He's diving, so I'm not going to worry about him. However, I want to make sure that this P-40 stays off my bow fighter. I don't need the objective being turned back any more than it already is. So pull back in here on the P-40. Going to get him in range. You know, with the short range guns, you're just going to start be able to get him around 500 meters or so. Pick up the P-40. There's not a whole lot he can do. Like I said, at this altitude at 2,000 meters, he's pretty much screwed. Alright, so we're still holding on to 3 objectives, and of course we're building it pretty quickly here. Now, like you noticed, like I said, the center is still heavily infested with the red fighters. I'm not going to push my luck too much yet. Even though at this altitude, at almost 2,400 meters, I feel pretty confident about going in here and dealing with this. We're going to, of course, make sure that this objective over here is going to be left alone. I'm looking around, seeing what my targets are. Air defense fighters pick off the F-2A. And now I said I'm looking for targets of opportunity. P-38F's below me. At this altitude, there is no enemy fighters up this high, but I do have the objective defense fighters up here. They're after my bomber, which is fine by me. This is one of those deals where you just kind of pick off targets as you work at the Yak one. He just dived down. He doesn't have the altitude performance to get up here, so I'm just going to start picking on bow fighters. And now is my chance. I have relatively even numbers here with fighters to pick off this objective. So always looking, see what we got. The objective is about half turn. Here comes my bow fighter. We're going to see if we can pick him off. No, I guess we're not. We're going to turn around. Here we go. Spitfire 1A. Super maneuverable aircraft. Very good at what it does. Unfortunately, at this altitude, it doesn't have an advantage over my aircraft. So even if he decided to turn with me, I would have just zoomed up a little bit higher and then come back down on him. Picked the last bow fighter up, flipped the objective, and now we're up 4-1. Yeah, game's almost over with. So I've did the cake thing. I've cleared my top, and now I just have some planes down here on the bottom to deal with. Both of them are human fighters, so this should be interesting. I'm going to pick up the P-38F because he's the low HP target. And a little bit of a zoom and boom, not really, but it works. Flip over, and I got the Yak 1 coming through here. This is, like I said, one of those deals. Ambush. Always ambush in these energy fighters. He wasn't paying attention, so it allowed me to come down, get on his tail, and with the 350s and the two 7.62s, you can work through that HP relatively quickly. So boost back up here. Trying to get boosted up here. I would really like to finish and knock off the last bomber here. We're going to go into the vertical. Probably going to stall out here, but I'm going to try to get as much HP and XP as possible. Finish off another fighter. Let's spend about 8,600 in combat points. Yeah, not a bad game. P-40 coming in. I would really like to shot his ass, but I didn't do it. So now, you know, we always talk about, oh, I got like 12,000 combat points, 13,000 combat points, and I lost. Yeah, you don't have to have a lot of combat points to win the game. You know, play the objective. In this game, these guys that had really high combat points, they just camped center. We were able to control more objectives the game. Sure, I didn't get as much combat points as they did, but I controlled objectives, which wins games, not so much, you know, personal combat points. or personal points, or whatever the fuck they're calling it nowadays. They keep changing shit. But yeah, you see, I stayed out of center and just worked targets of opportunity and cleared objectives, kept objectives running, so we could stay ahead of them there like that, and then waited till, of course, the center cleared out, and then moved in and took it out. So a little tactics as well as the play in the MiG-3. Great energy fighter. Keep at altitude, 1,500 meters plus, and just work your shit. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll be seeing you tomorrow night.